Greetings, this is Dennis Regling with Go Deeper Bible Studies. Today we are looking at the influence of the stars and ancient mythology on the scriptures. The Bible was written to an ancient people that lived among other ancient cultures, so naturally those beliefs entered into ancient Hebrew thinking and are often reflected in scripture. The book of Job's divine speeches, chapters 38 to 41, represent one of the Hebrew Bible's most sustained engagements with natural philosophy and cosmology. Among the various natural phenomena cataloged in YHWH's response to Job's challenge, the astronomical references in Job 38:31 through 32 have attracted particular scholarly attention. The verse reads, "Can you bind the chains of the Pleiades, Kima, or loose the cords of Orion, Casil? Can you lead forth the Mazzaroth in their season, or can you guide the bear, Ash, with its children?" This study focuses specifically on the first Kola's reference to Kima, traditionally identified with the Pleiades cluster, known in various ancient traditions as the Seven Sisters. The theological and cosmological implications of this reference, particularly when considered alongside the parallel passage in Amos 5:8, illuminate important aspects of Hebrew astronomical knowledge and its integration into biblical theology. The Hebrew Kima appears only 3 times in the Hebrew Bible: Job 38:31, Amos 5:8, and Job 9:9. The term's etymology remains disputed, though most scholars derive it from a root suggesting heap or cluster, which aligns well with the astronomical identification of the Pleiades. The Septuagint consistently translates Kima as Pleiades, providing early attestation for this identification. The Vulgate's rendering as Hyades reflects Jerome's alternative astronomical interpretation, though this has found little support in subsequent scholarship. The Targums generally support the Pleiades identification, with Targum Job rendering the term as Shuriaya, likely referring to the stellar cluster's appearance. The parallelism in Job 38:31 juxtaposes Kima with Casil, Orion, creating a binary opposition between celestial phenomena. The metaphorical language of binding chains, ma'adanot, and loosing cords, moshakot, suggests divine control over cosmic forces that appear fixed yet dynamic to human observation. The term ma'adanot presents particular interpretive challenges. While often translated as chains or bonds, recent scholarship has suggested connections to concepts of influence or attractive force, potentially reflecting ancient understanding of gravitational or magnetic principles governing celestial mechanics. Mesopotamian astronomical texts provide crucial comparative material for understanding Hebrew stellar terminology. The Babylonian Mul-Apin series identifies the star cluster Mul-Mul, literally star-star, with the Pleiades, associating it with the god Enlil and the spring season. This identification appears in astronomical diaries from the Neo-Babylonian period and provides evidence for widespread recognition of the cluster across ancient Near Eastern cultures. The Enuma Anu Enlil astronomical omens frequently reference the Pleiades in seasonal contexts, particularly regarding agricultural timing and religious festivals. This practical astronomical knowledge would have been accessible to educated scribes throughout the ancient Near East, including those responsible for biblical composition. Egyptian astronomical texts, particularly those preserved in tomb decorations and medical papyri, demonstrate familiarity with the Pleiades cluster. The Dendera zodiac includes what appears to be a representation of the Seven Sisters, though the exact identification remains debated among Egyptologists. More significantly, the Egyptian concern with stellar navigation and agricultural timing parallels the practical applications of Pleiades observation found throughout the ancient world. The cluster's heliacal rising marked important seasonal transitions, making it a natural reference point for divine control over temporal cycles. Greek astronomical and mythological traditions surrounding the Pleiades provide important comparative context, though direct influence on biblical texts remains questionable given chronological considerations. The Hesiodic tradition associates the Seven Sisters with agricultural timing, while later Hellenistic sources develop elaborate mythological narratives around the cluster. The philosopher Democritus's observation that the Milky Way consists of distant stars demonstrates the level of astronomical sophistication available in the ancient Mediterranean world. Such knowledge contexts help explain the precision of biblical astronomical references. The parallel reference in Amos 5:8 provides crucial interpretive context for understanding the theological significance of Kima in Hebrew scripture. He who made the Pleiades, Kima, and Orion, Casil, who turns deep darkness into morning and darkens day into night, who calls for the waters of the sea and pours them out on the surface of the earth. Yahchu is his name. In Amos, the Pleiades reference functions within a broader hymnic passage celebrating divine creative power. The astronomical imagery serves to establish YHWH's sovereignty over cosmic forces, providing theological grounding for the prophet's subsequent judgment oracles. The juxtaposition of Pleiades and Orion in both Job and Amos suggests a traditional pairing in Hebrew astronomical thought. This binary opposition may reflect observational astronomy, the cluster's positions in opposite seasons, or inherited poetic tradition. The use of astronomical imagery for theological purposes appears throughout ancient Near Eastern literature. The Mesopotamian Enuma Elish similarly employs stellar references to establish divine authority, while Egyptian solar hymns invoke celestial phenomena as evidence of divine power. The Hebrew appropriation of this imagery pattern serves distinctly monotheistic purposes, attributing all cosmic phenomena to YHWH's creative and sustaining activity rather than to a pantheon of astral deities. The identification of the Pleiades as 7 distinct stars appears across multiple ancient cultures, suggesting either shared observational tradition or independent recognition of the cluster's prominent members. Greek tradition names the 7 sisters as daughters of Atlas and Pleione, while various indigenous traditions worldwide preserve similar numerical traditions. The Hebrew text's focus on divine binding and loosing of the cluster may reflect awareness of ancient observations regarding the variable visibility of individual Pleiades stars. Such observations would have been available to careful ancient astronomers using naked eye observation techniques. While Hebrew scripture deliberately avoids mythological elaboration of the Pleiades, surrounding cultures developed extensive narrative traditions. The Mesopotamian association with Enlil suggests divine control over seasonal transitions, while Greek traditions emphasize themes of loss, mourning, and transformation. The biblical text's restraint in mythological development reflects their consistent monotheistic perspective, which appropriates astronomical imagery for theological purposes while avoiding polytheistic implications. The rhetorical question format in Job 38:31 emphasizes human inability to control cosmic forces, establishing divine sovereignty through astronomical imagery. The specific reference to binding and loosing stellar clusters suggests divine control over forces that appear both fixed and dynamic to human observation. This theological use of astronomy serves the broader purpose of the divine speeches, demonstrating the limits of human knowledge and the extent of divine wisdom and power. The integration of astronomical observations into theological discourse represents sophisticated engagement with natural philosophy. Rather than viewing scientific and religious perspectives as contradictory, the biblical texts demonstrate how careful observation of natural phenomena can support theological claims about divine nature and activity. This approach anticipates later theological developments in Jewish and Christian traditions that see scientific investigation as revealing divine attributes through creation study. The biblical references to Kima, Pleiades in Job 38:31 and Amos 5:8 represent sophisticated integration of ancient astronomical knowledge with Hebrew theological discourse. The identification with the 7 sisters reflects widespread ancient recognition of this prominent stellar cluster, while the theological application serves distinctly monotheistic purposes in establishing divine sovereignty over cosmic forces. The comparative analysis reveals both the shared astronomical heritage of ancient Near Eastern cultures and the distinctive theological appropriation of this knowledge within Hebrew scripture. The restraint shown in avoiding elaborate mythological development while maintaining astronomical precision demonstrates the biblical author's careful balance between observational accuracy and theological purpose. Future research might profitably explore additional astronomical references in Hebrew scripture, particularly regarding the development of cosmological theology in post-exilic Jewish literature and its influence on later philosophical traditions. The intersection of ancient astronomy and theology continues to illuminate important aspects of biblical cosmology and its enduring theological significance. Thank you for watching. Be sure to check out my advanced class on the Book of Revelation. Double asterisk.